Have you ever wondered what life would be like if you were no longer hurt by what others do to you? If rejection didn't shatter you, betrayal didn't keep you awake at night, and judgment couldn't make you question your worth? We grow up in a world that teaches us strength means being tough, emotionless. But it's this very version of strength that exhausts us. The fatigue you feel doesn't come from a life that's too harsh. It comes from constantly bracing yourself, holding it all together, hiding your pain. We smile when we want to cry. We try to please others while quietly falling apart. We pretend we're fine because we're afraid of being seen as weak. But what if you didn't have to pretend to be okay, and instead, you truly were? What if you stopped performing strength and started living from real inner power? The truth about pain that no one wants to face. We often think what hurts us is what others do. The criticism, the betrayal, the rejection. But the truth is, pain doesn't come from the event. It comes from what it touches inside of you. Pain only has power when it awakens a wound that already existed. A careless comment only becomes a breaking point if you've already felt belittled. Being left behind only terrifies you if you've once believed you're unlovable. Carl Jung once said, "We are not what happens to us. We are what we choose to become." And the moment you stop asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" and start asking, "Why does this hurt me so deeply?" that's the moment you begin to grow. Pain does not control you. It's your resistance to it that makes you feel lost. We're often afraid of our own feelings, afraid of anger, afraid of being hurt, afraid of appearing vulnerable. But emotions are not enemies. They are messengers carrying truth from within. Every overreaction is an echo from an old wound. Every emotional trigger is not random. It's an invitation to look at a part of you that's still waiting to be healed. We are taught to stay calm, to manage emotions, to be strong. But repression doesn't make feelings disappear, it buries them deeper. And what's buried doesn't die, it lives on quietly, beneath the surface. It returns through familiar patterns. The same arguments, the same sadness, the same setbacks. Not because you're weak, not because you're not good enough, but because you're unconsciously replaying what hasn't been understood. And only when you're brave enough to pause, to listen, to feel, can you begin a new journey not to control your emotions, but to understand them. Because beneath every pain lies a truth you once tried to forget. Jung also wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." We are not bound by fate. We are bound by what remains unseen within us. The repeated reactions we think are just who we are. The old wounds we believed we had forgotten. The hidden beliefs that quietly guide every choice, even when we don't realize it. We don't repeat destiny, we repeat what hasn't yet healed. Healing is not an escape from pain. It is the conscious decision to walk through it, awake and aware. We often say, "I'll be at peace when life calms down. I'll be happy when the pain is gone." But perhaps we've misunderstood. Healing doesn't happen when pain ends, it happens when you stop running from it. It begins not with action, but with presence. Being present enough to hear what you've been avoiding, being gentle enough to sit beside your pain without judgment, and being brave enough to ask, "Why are you here? What do you need from me?" Because emotions don't need your control, they need your acknowledgement. Not to drown you, but to be held as a part of you. Healing is not about extinguishing the fire of feeling. It's about learning how to sit beside it without being burned. Courage is not rushing through the pain. It's being still enough to truly feel it. Not dismissing it, not denying it, not intellectualizing it. Because some things can only be healed when you allow yourself to fully feel them. Society teaches you to control, to be strong, resilient, calm. But control is often just a mask, hiding the fear of being hurt. And what is repressed does not disappear. It goes underground. It silently shapes your habits, your choices, your relationships. You think you're living, but in truth, you're reacting. Reacting to things you've never had the chance to fully understand. But you don't have to live like that anymore. You can't control the world. But you can choose how you show up for yourself when it shakes. Mastery is not coldness. It's not detachment. Mastery is when you still feel, but you're no longer consumed. You recognize that pain doesn't define you. It's simply a part of growing. You still feel, but you don't get swept away. You still get angry, but you don't destroy. You still feel sorrow, but you don't see yourself as broken. You become the observer, not the victim. You stand inside yourself, no longer tossed by every emotional wave. And then you learn to come home to yourself, to return to the parts you left behind, to the softness you were once ashamed of, to the vulnerability you tried to hide, thinking it wasn't lovable. The world told you to be strong, but sometimes that strength becomes a wall between you and your own soul. You don't need to be numb to be accepted. You need to be whole to truly live. Wholeness is not perfection. It's when you stop dividing yourself into good and bad. It's when you see all of who you are, the contradictions, the complexities, the tenderness, and you choose to embrace it all. Because that is what true love is. Not something you seek outside, but something you offer inward. Not someone who heals you, but the safe home you become for your own soul. Healing doesn't come from covering pain. It comes from bringing it home. You are not your wounds, but you are shaped by what you haven't faced. You are not the betrayal, not the criticism, not the fall from years ago. But as long as you haven't faced it, it still leads you. When you haven't accepted yourself, you'll keep seeking validation from others. When you haven't accepted your emotions, you'll apologize for your tears. When you haven't healed, you'll live as if you have something to prove. But when you come into full ownership of yourself, something untouchable is born within you. Self-acceptance, that's real strength. It's not about never falling, it's about knowing how to rise. Being untouchable doesn't mean you'll never feel pain. It means pain no longer has the power to break you. You no longer need recognition from those who don't see you. You no longer apologize for being yourself. You no longer run from emotions, you walk straight into them. Not to be ruled by them, but to let them guide you. And each time you fall, you rise again, not in shame, but in awareness. If you've made it this far, you're ready. Many people begin this journey but turn back because it hurts, because it's real, because it asks for a kind of courage not everyone is ready for. They return to the old masks, the old roles, the illusion of safety. But if you're still reading these final words, you're not one of them. You found the courage to stop abandoning yourself. Now is the time to stop asking, "Why does life hurt me?" and start asking, "Why am I still so easily hurt by it?" Jung once said, "What you resist will persist. What you accept transforms." You no longer need to be strong the old way. You need to be awake. You need to be present with your emotions honestly, without fear. You may still cry, but now you'll know why. You may still feel pain, but it will no longer control you. Because you're no longer running, no longer pretending. You've begun to live truthfully.